Hi, everyone, and welcome to Nothing Ventured, Nothing Game. As always, I'm the host, GM Jared, and I'm joined with Steve.
Yep.
And today we are going to have a special interview with Kathryn and Devon, two of the three creators from the upcoming game, Estate, Raise the Realm. How are you doing today?
We're doing awesome. Thanks for having us on the podcast.
Yeah, good evening, good day, whatever time you're listening to this at.
Yeah, so we met, well, Steve actually met you guys over at Long Island Tabletop Con and fell in love with your game. And he was like, hey, can we talk? You guys were like, yep, let's talk. So we are going to chat about this upcoming game and when. So where is everything going to be launched? Where can people look out for your game? We'll do that now in the beginning and then again at the end. So we'll double hit them so they'll know.
Yep, awesome. So we're going to be on Kickstarter this October. You can find out more information on Kickstarter itself. There's a pre-launch page up already, but you can also check out our website, grodgames.com, grodgames.com, and there you can sign up for our email list, and we send out pretty regular updates about the game, what we're working on, and as you know, we're getting ready for the launch. So highly recommend signing up for that.
Awesome.
Cool.
So, Estate, Raise the Realm. What inspired this game? What was kind of like the thought process behind this? Were you guys like, you know what would be dope right now? Making a game?
So you'll hear our sort of the name is Grod Games. So Grod has like a root in Polish heritage, and there was a period of time during COVID where we had a lot of time and was reading into the history of Poland and discovered this time period called the Golden Liberty period, which this was a time when the monarchy of Poland, so this was Middle Ages Poland, 1500s, whenever the monarch passed away, all the nobles would come together and vote on a new king. So it was a noble democracy. And I thought that was really cool. So thematically, wanted to make a game, but had plenty of time inside during COVID and started building around that and sort of mashed up all of our favorite rules, I think. You name a game that you really enjoy, and it probably had a mechanic from that. And then we spent about 2 to 3 years cutting back a lot of rules and mechanics. So we sort of started with a body of mechanics and then whittled down to what worked. And Kathryn, you can probably speak a little bit more to that experience because you helped cut a lot.
I mean, I think what inspires us to make the game too is just like this sense of we love games that have a lot of strategy to them, but have, worker placement. So like you have some constraints throughout the game and you're really trying to maximize that. So that was really like the core tenet and mechanic that we built into our game, Estate Raise the Realm, which is you have a set number of workers, you have essentially a set number of turns throughout the game, and you're trying to build up the best estate. And we wanted to make a game that scratch that itch and like had a lot of replayability and just was something that we'd want to put on the table with our friends and family.
Game setup, I think it has maybe 2.1 million different versions of setup when you encounter the game. It's a lot, but it's also very simple. There's 4 basic actions you can take, and then it's all about optimizing action economy, which that's where you get a lot of complexity going.
Interesting. So we talked about kind of like earlier was the Golden Liberty, and that's where it came from. So tell us about the game. Like, just give us a brief summary about the game, the 360 billion rules that you shrank down to be an easy, not like, Encyclopedia Britannica rule book. I mean, unless it's like that, like, is it like that? Like, am I expecting?
No, yeah. So I think not to scare people, but like it isn't as complex as we're, I think, making it sound like. So at its core, Estate Raise the Realm is a medieval fantasy worker placement tableau building game where you take on the role of a noble leader who's been given an estate after a great war has just ended. So thematically, you're taking on the role of this leader. You have 4 workers in your estate to start, and you're using those workers over the course of 5 eras of time. So eras around in our game. And everyone takes turns using workers until all workers are used up. As Devon mentioned, there's 4 basic actions you can take, such as drawing cards, playing cards, getting resources, and then you can activate cards that are in your estate. And so, you know, thematically, each leader also has their own special ability and an asymmetric engine. And as you play cards in your estate, that's what's going to build up that engine, so your other worker actions become more powerful. Happy to talk about any of that in more detail, but that's like the quick high-level summary of like what is the game, and as a player, like you're taking on the role of this leader, and you're working to build up the best estate.
Cool. Have you guys ever seen the show Park and Rec?
Yes.
It sounds like Cones of Dunshire, like in my head, like that's
The first version, yes.
Yeah.
100%. Not to be mean, I love like Parks and Rec, and I like that whole thing. Like I would play that game if like someone figured out the rules. But like the way you were just describing, like, oh man, like we were home during the pandemic, and then like inspiration, and I like the whole time I was just like, Parks and Rec did this, and that's awesome, and like it sounds like a ton of fun. But I don't want to derail this conversation, right? I because I love talking to you guys. So Steve actually got to play a game, Steve. So Steve, I heard something about a cat in a basket, and then I was like, I'm in. But so Steve, from your aspect, like what was kind of some of the points of the game that you enjoyed, and maybe you could bounce questions off of them? Because
yeah, I mean,
I wasn't there.
Yeah. The two words that pique my ears is worker placement and engine building. I love engine building games, and this game, it's weird because it scratches the engine building itch, but I always want one more round. That's the one thing. It's like, oh, I have my engine now. I want to do cool stuff. Oh, and the game happened.
We've actually been debating putting into the rule book like an optional marathon mode, and you add in one extra era at the end of the game to play. And like obviously you agree on that at the start, but that is a common like, oh, we just want a few more turns, and it's not like you're ending in a bad spot. They just want to keep playing. That's
yeah. It's not a complaint. Yeah, it's not a complaint. It was just like when I was playing with another person who only played one other time, and then the other playtester they had played several times, and in a game like this, it helps to know the cards, and I was just starting to like figure out, and I also didn't want to take too much time of reading every card, so I wanted to make sure that everyone was leaving on time. So, but yeah, it is a lot of fun, and I could see a lot of different strategies and the other cool thing is, and I'm going to make mention of another game, is similar to Roll for the Galaxy, is you can have an idea of what you want to play. You have like, oh, this is the build that I want to go for, and you can just not get the cards for it. So you have to adapt to it's not always like, oh, I can always take this path and achieve victory. It's, I have to deal with the resources that I have. Each character does start with the set amount. Like you said, like this character starts with this, and that character may start with other cards to play. But then again, you might not get the cards to fund the plan that you have, so you have to adapt, which I always think is cool for engine building games.
Yeah, there's over 50 unique cards in the deck, so it's definitely that, like exactly what you're talking about, Steve. Like you might be looking for a certain card, and like you might not get it, but I think it's also cool because you have a lot of flexibility, and based on the leader you have, like you start with a certain card build in your state, but then you also get dealt 4 cards to start the game. So something we've actually recently adjusted for the rules is that you draft those first cards. So that lets you kind of understand and like see, oh, like maybe like with my leader, I want these certain cards, and that just helps you see more of those cards up front, and then help you start your build a little bit better.
You draft with the other players?
Yep. So everyone draws 5, and then they'll rotate, keeping 1 passing, and then you discard the last card.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a useful tool, I think, to balance, so that way if someone happens to get just like a really great hand of high value, low cost cards, spreads that out a little bit.
So yeah, you said how many? You said the card approximately, at least at this moment, how many cards? You said it was 60 cards.
There's 50 unique cards in the deck, and then like a variety of numbers for each of those based on the card type.
That's a nice number of cards to see, because you're seeing 15 cards.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, if you have less players than 5, it's 1 to 4, 1 to 5.
It's 1 to 5. Yeah, that was another piece of feedback. Actually, we adapted based on Origins. So we were live at Origins with a booth, and one of the number one questions we kept getting was like, "Hey, does this play 5?" And then the second question was like, "Hey, do you have solo mode?" And so we very quickly were like, "Hey, we've actually never played it with 5," and this was back in June. So at Origins, we fit in a couple 5-player sessions, and it worked really well. Like, we were worried a little bit about the game board action spots getting a little bit crowded, but in reality, I think it just worked very beautifully at 5. So we've been playing some more sessions with 5 players, and then currently still working on the solo mode. But I think that's another piece as designers, we're always listening to the players, and hearing what that feedback is. And we heard just a ton of hey, my group is 5 players, so there's not a lot of 5-player games out there, and I think that our game is maybe uniquely fit for that. Where it's still not going to be too long, even with adding that 5th player in.
Yeah, that's one thing is when we played, we had me and 2 other players, and I think one of you was on there to teach the game, or maybe someone was on there teaching the game that wasn't a player. With 3 players, we actually didn't. There was only 1 or 2 rounds that we had a contention of we both wanted the same spot on the board, because just to give you unless you correct me, something's changed. Each person has their own tableau, and your own tableau has your own worker placement spaces that no one else can use. So a lot of times you're using your own spaces. So only if you need one of those more advanced actions on the board, then I think even you said, I believe that even some of those are available to multiple people. Like creating more workers is something that you can't block, which I think is awesome, because I've played games like that, and it's generally whoever makes the first worker wins.
That was actually intentional, in the game design. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Devon, around it's a resource plentiful.
Yeah, it is resource plentiful, where there should always be a method of getting the resources that you need to play the cards that you want. It may not give you the best conversion, but it should give you something. It's also, we call it worker placement light, where there's a little bit of competition for the worker placement spots, but you're usually going to be able to go for what you want to, because of the variety of strategy, where maybe one person's really focused on their own engine in their estate and not really pursuing the game board actions, whereas another person might pursue the game board actions. So you tend to see a diversity of not everyone going to the game board. Some people are just really focused on what they're doing kind of in their own little estate. You make it 5 players though, and there definitely is some more competition. So if you want that competition, make it a 5-player game.
Again, I apologize I wasn't able to get to play your game, but now I'm super invested. I love history. I said my focus was always was American and constitutional law, and I never learned much outside of basic history of European history, and it's mostly the American school system mostly focuses on the 2 big world wars, and they're like, yep, that's all that happened over in Europe. But
and the Roman Empire.
Yeah, and that's it. That was it. Just 2 big world wars, no other reason to talk about Europe. But seeing how this was inspired by Polish history, super cool, super interesting. Again, my lack of knowledge on that is broad. So you were talking about these leaders, right? And then how everyone kind of has their own setting. Could you explain how the leaders work and how they who they are? Are they actual historical leaders, or were you nope, this is Bill, he's the leader I created?
So it is I'd say a fantastical alternate universe. It is not the Earth. I would say it's loosely inspired from a world building perspective.
Cool.
We lent from that concept. So initially the world that this is set in, it is set in a universe that was created for Dungeons and Dragons for a group of friends that was playing pre-COVID, and then I just kind of borrowed from it when creating this game. And we hinted, I think, a little bit, maybe this was pre-recording, but we're not planning any expansions. The idea is a trilogy of games that are all set in this universe. So you have Estate Raise the Realm, and then we're going to have, hopefully, if the Kickstarter is successful, it will be successful.
It will be successful.
We'll have a sort of a prequel moment. So in Estate Raise the Realm, a great war has just ended, and the nobles are rebuilding and sort of vying for power. The king has passed. There's actually a character, one of the leaders is the Trade Queen, so she was elected as the new monarch. But The prequel will be the Great War, so you'll get to experience that, and then news to be determined yet on what that third game is. But mechanically, the first two games will be similar. So in Estate Raise the Realm, you're controlling your estate and the actions you take. I kind of say, the player's deciding and the player's playing the game. In the prequel, the prototype that we're working on, the game plays you. So the game is telling you what actions you need to take. And then based on if you're able to, maximize that action, if you can't play a card, what happens? There's some things that happen there. But we're a little early for that.
Oh, okay. Now I have to bug you. The Trade Queen, and so are you allowed to tell me like some of these leaders? Can I get like this inside information? Kathryn, is that like the Trade Queen? Were you the Trade Queen inspiration?
No. I mean, as Devon said, they're all kind of fantasy fiction characters, but I would have to say from like, we're working with our artist now to kind of redo what that art is for each of the leaders. And my favorite is the Druid Lord. So she's really baller. Like she just has a really cool, like overall feature set. And then like their special ability is when they use their forest card, they can double the effect of the forest. So they're kind of just like raising wood across their estate. And you can even like do multiple forest cards in your estate. So that can be a really powerful engine for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. The Druid Lord is just squirrels. They just create squirrels. All the squirrels.
So the lords have magic abilities, or sorry, special abilities, superior abilities than everyone else. So how does this work? Let's obviously let's talk about the mechanics of everything, right? So I'm a new player, I haven't played. I sit down to your game, I see the druid, and I'm like, that's the character I want to be. They have wood, I want to play that character. Obviously it could be a bit overwhelming to a new player like myself. So how does this all kind of like interweave? Is there like specific things that you would like the game would tell me or give me information on before I would start the game? And like maybe I was just like, oh, I want to be a druid, and I'm also going to just work with the cats because cats and druids make sense. But instead, I was missing a key element. So how does this game work? How can I know more?
Yeah, so each leader, or when as you play on the leader, you have your player mat or your state board, and that has a picture of your leader. The back actually has a backstory of the leader just to help immerse you in the world. But then that front side has what your special ability is, so it very clearly states what it is, and then it also lists the 2 cards that you start with. So every leader has a unique starting build of cards, and then there's a spot for your workers, and then like the 4 player action spots on the player mat that kind of describe what you do. So I think like we tried to make it pretty contained of like you have this dual layer player mat board and you get your workers, and so like it's all contained there on your player mat itself. We also have a player aid that we've developed that helps explain some of the symbology and what the 4 turns are that you can do within your estate.
And the special abilities I'd add are usually enhancing either one of those cards that the leader starts with, or one of the 4 actions that the leader can take. And as a result, or the player can take. And as a result of that, some of the leaders are a little bit more, I'd say, like early game strategy, and other leaders have a much stronger progression. And by late game, they're getting more victory points than maybe the earlier leaders. So there is that balancing act. And we talked a little bit about this tableau. As a result of that, we've had to balance the tableau from leader to leader. So every tableau is slightly different as you're progressing through the game.
Oh, that's dope.
I was just going to jump in there. That's one of the things I actually enjoyed, where I played other games where like, oh, I have this one differentiating power, but nothing else is different about my character, because there is 3 or 4 tracks on the player board, correct? 3.
Yep.
And then that affects certain actions in the game, and the higher you can choose to spend your time raising those tracks up by doing certain things, and they get better. But someone starts maybe slightly ahead on one track or another, but then behind on another track. So it's this kind of game of like, do I want to shore up where I'm already weak, or do I want to be even better and faster, than getting more progression in that one track that I'm already ahead in? So I really thought that, like, when the 3 of us were in the sat down, quote unquote sat down, we were online, but I really, when I started looking at them, like, oh, I already noticed that the player tableaus have different starting paths, which I'm always up for. Plus, you get your own cards, so you already have a path, and then you already have like your character's weak in this area but strong in that area. So I was like, yes, thumbs up, yes.
So we plan to have at least 6, and then there will be a few more that will be unlocked as stretch goals, to be determined how many more. Right now, our stretch goals are secret, so we're still figuring that out.
We won't talk about that. Shh. Don't talk about that. Don't worry about that. Devon, do you have a leader that you liked? As a creator, was there a leader that like you were like, yeah, this is my dude, or this is the one thing I really liked?
Oh man, there's a couple leaders that have variable starts. So they start with a card that's there's one called the sorcerer, and the sorcerer starts and immediately triggers the effect of their card is currently actually named the sorcerer. That's their starting build as well.
Oh, that's cool.
And they reveal 3 cards from the deck, and they can play one of them at a reduced cost. So the sorcerer's in essence summoning their start, which just leads to a high degree of variance. I've had amazing games as a sorcerer. I've had games that I've been like okay with as a sorcerer. A lot of that came down to like, how did I start my build? In some cases, I always saw one person who started with the sorcerer, and out of the gate, they had like 4 or 5 cards played. And that was absurd. They just like had the perfect chain where they played a card that played another card that played another card that played like another card for them. I was just like, how did you do that? How did the deck do that? But yeah, sorcerer, there's another one called the pious one, and the pious one also has a variable start, and it also gets you an extra card into your hand through that start. So
that's dope. Those are cool.
I like the high variance games.
So far, names are awesome. I love them. I love all the characters you got. Like, it's really cool. And like, I'm so sad I didn't get Steve. You should have dragged me away. Should have just like yanked me out of my chair.
I didn't actually play it that day. I did sign up on their website, and I did join one of the playtests. I was going to join more, with editing and also work. I did not have the time to join, and I didn't want to be. I'll join, and I couldn't show up, so I don't want to be that person. So I only got to try it once.
So we do have a couple floating copies of the game.
Ooh. So what I'm hearing is there's a way to play online? Question mark?
Yep. So we have a version of the game on a free platform called ScreenTop.gg or ScreenTop.gg. And we chose that actually because it is more accessible. I know some people are probably familiar with Tabletop Simulator.
Yep.
We first put the game on there like many moons ago, but you need to have a license to have that. So we had friends who didn't have it, and so we figured, let's check out this other platform. And I think it kind of spun up during COVID, or it's come up recently, and I feel like they've enhanced some of the features. So from a playability, it's pretty intuitive online. It's a web-based browser, so if you go on there, you'll find Estate Raise the Realm, and it's actually accessible. Anyone could start a version of the game, but we also do hosted play sessions with us pretty frequently. So signing up for our email list that's the best way we blast out when we're doing those.
So you hear that, everyone out there. You have to screentop.gg, sign up, get on their website, and sign up on their newsletter.
Is that something that's going to be continued on after the launch and hopeful successfulness of the Kickstarter, or is this something just to get playtesting down and to iron out details of the game?
I'd say right now it's really the latter. We're trying to make it so that we can play with as many people as possible, get as much feedback as possible. But I think that having a final version online is definitely something I'm interested in doing. So if that's on Tabletop Simulator or ScreenTop or both, maybe.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, we would like to make probably a more polished digital version.
Yeah.
The version that it is now is a prototype version for digital. So if we do that, probably anyone that backs it, we'll send them a coupon to get it if it's a paid version or however we decide to launch it.
Yep.
Awesome.
So I'm not going to ask some hard-hitting questions. These are the crazy hard-hitting questions. I know before it was all softball questions, but now super hard-hitting questions. Did you suffer any major setbacks on your journey to this point? And if you want to talk about them.
I can speak for myself, and then Devin, if you want to answer, like I would say, like we haven't had any major things happen, but I do feel like it's been a moving target of like, oh, we want to launch the game, and then we find out like there's all this stuff we have to do, and then like you every week it's like you learn something new. So the community that we've met though has been incredible and just helping us learn from their mistakes, that like they've done along the way. So we met the creator of Mycelium. Like I think they launched in 2023 or 2022. I think it was 2022 Kickstarter. So like we interviewed him like just one-to-one like last winter and just like picked his brain about what did you do pre-launch? What did you do post-launch, right? Like just to understand all the different steps. And then we've been part of some other communities, like the Unpub group has been great. Been there at the PAX Unpub room for quite a few years. And yeah, I think that like we originally were planning to launch in June, like just being transparent about that. And then we were in May and we're like, there's so much we have to do. Like we have to move it. And I think as first time publishers, like there's always going to be more stuff you can do. So like trying to balance the can't make everything perfect. Like, it's our baby and we want to make it like the best game ever. But like, we also have to be realistic about like the time and resources we have as, first time publishers. So yeah, I would say like it's been a lot of like, little things, but we're in this just also to have fun and learn and meet other people in the community too. So
I have two fun stories, both Long Island Tabletop actually.
Yeah.
So we had one time at Long Island Tabletop where we showed up and we were at the playtesting demo tables upstairs. Completely forgot. Left the game in our rental and did not have it. So I happened to have a deck of cards in my backpack, but our game board, the player mats, everything else was not present to play. So we spent the first 2 hours like hastily cutting out sheets of paper and hand drawing things, and it worked out, which was awesome. And then a year later at Long Island Tabletop, I don't know if they narrowed the tables or what, or maybe it was just the first version or two of the game. The game board was just like way too big.
Didn't even fit on the table.
Did not fit on the table.
Oh no!
Like a 2-year-old.
Yeah, this is from like 2 years ago. And we had a buddy, Garrett, who he hosts us usually when we come up for Long Island. And he introduced us to a game, Tiny Epic Games, the Galaxies edition, and just a stacking of the cards. And it turns out once you played a card in a state, you don't need any of the information or the image. You could just stack them and at the time we had this like pretty little scroll. So it's almost like you had these scrolls that were stacking together little sheets of parchment, and it looked really elegant. And those were two panicky moments where it's like the table is too small. Like how is it gonna work? And he's like, remember the game we just played? Like what if we did something like that? And it's like brilliant. So every step away, there's been someone who's like helped us along the way when we've had that like really that moment of high stress. It's like I don't know what to do. I'm very thankful for that. I think you are too.
Yeah. Well, I think constraints make you innovate better, right? So constraints in time, space, all the things. So I think that's been really fun for me, is like being able to innovate and be really creative as part of this journey.
Awesome. So obviously, the game's been in development for a few years now. What's kind of like been like one of the bigger changes that you saw in your game? Like, were there dice involved at a certain point, and then you guys were like, no, dice are terrible, or obviously the cards, you were stacking them on top, but that came about because of the fact that we in Long Island shrank all tables without letting anyone else know. We were like, nope, shrink the tables.
Honey, I shrunk the tables.
Yeah.
I blame NASA for that.
100%.
Do you want to take this one? So Jared, you're asking what are some rules that we've taken out?
Yeah, something that's like you kind of like had part of the game, and then like as you played and had play testers, you were like, oh man, this just doesn't work at all. So it was like, what was kind of like some of the bigger changes that like the players won't see now because it's the final development, but like you started with and you were like, yeah, this was definitely one of the cooler rules. So what was like some of the stuff that like you felt you had to like get rid of because the flow didn't work?
There were a couple, I'd say like really big iterative changes over time, especially over that like first 2-year-ish period from like 2020 to 2022. One of the earlier versions had I describe it as like a scythe-like map where you could acquire cities that you were basically conquering with your units. And then that city would turn into your player mat, and then you'd be playing estate cards into the city. And so as a result, you ended up having multiple cities with different strengths. It was just like you were playing 4D chess. It was they're like, let's just do one. Everyone gets one estate, and there's no the map was kind of like fluff for moving pieces around. It was a tactile thing, but it wasn't really what was needed for the game. Like we had these, one of the actions, I think we had 5 worker actions, and one of them was to move, and we just got rid of that one and narrowed it down to 4. It's like, wow, this seems to like work a lot better. So I'd say that was one like pretty major change where we downsized a lot.
I think another one was politics. So like one of Devon's favorite games is diplomacy.
It's a great game.
Oh no.
Right. So he just really wanted to have that sort of like interaction of like people voting for things. And we had it in like the very early version, but it kind of slowed the game down, and just certain people like that and certain people don't. Right. So we kind of nixed that because it just didn't, like, you were voting for policies that impacted everyone. And so we still have something that impacts everyone. Those are the era events, but they just happen. So like, you don't have to vote on it. Like, you don't have to say, oh, positive or negative. Like, there are just randomly positive and negative ones now in the game. It's part of the game setup. And, an era event could be the era of plenty, and everyone gets, I forgot, like +1 production or something. And then like an era of famine is like every card that costs grain costs 1 more grain, right? Like, so they're thematic events, like kind of tying to the overall game theme, but we took out the element of needing to vote for them because just was 1 more mechanic we didn't need.
Added an extra 15 minutes per round. It was a lot. And then there was also 1 more stat that you're keeping track of on your cards. So the cards were very busy with all this different information. Oh, we can for that and don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna ask a question that's gonna piggyback on the question that we just went over. Is there a mechanic in the game that you took out, but like part of you is like, oh, I wish we could keep it?
It was definitely the politics. I see it. It's right there. He's like, no, the politics need to come back.
We spent a lot of time thinking about how to approach the transition of rounds. And it had a tough time with that, where the board I just kind of showed you actually earlier on, we had 7 rounds. And as you play through them, if you played Agricola, where you sort of flip over the event and have that mechanic of like, sorry, not the event, flipping over the round and having a new effect that you can use your worker on. That was sort of a mechanic that we loved. And we actually ended up taking it out. And I would have loved to have brought it back, but it just doesn't fit. And we found sort of a new twist on that, where you have the major worker actions that are sort of the base ones that everyone has access to. And then there are 4 others that are more powerful. And we mentioned this, there's this tableau progression where one of the tableau sections allows you to unlock those more powerful actions. So instead of having a random effect or like action get revealed that is going to change based on time, and it's going to change game to game because we have multiple versions for that spot. Now you can see all 4, so you know what they are, and you can decide, is this a strategy that I want to pursue and sort of unlock myself?
That's cool. Generally, how long does a game take? In general, you were saying because of like earlier, because of politics, which I love also. So, but you said it tacked on like another 15 minutes. Is this like it's like a 45 to 50 minute game? Is it like a 60 to 70 minute game, 2 to 3 days?
We like to like just base it on player count. So it's about 15 to 20 minutes per player. And I know that sounds potentially fast, but like once you know the cards and like you're familiar with it, like you're really kind of just, taking your action, next player's going, and like what they're doing isn't necessarily impacting you too much. So you're not having do 40 chests in your head every time it's your turn, right? So I think it's a little bit unique that like it has so much strategy, but like it goes pretty fast. And so we've played 4-player games in 45 minutes, but like I think that's probably a little faster than most, just because like people we're playing with, we all know the game very well.
Got it. No, I get that. Like, obviously, if you know what you're doing, games go much faster.
Mhm.
And I know Steve will attest to this. He hates when I get a new game, because like he'll learn all the rules and I will do absolutely no research. I will just show up, and he'd be like, "Dude, there's like so much stuff you should have read." And I was like, "Don't worry about it.
Just not wingspan. Venn diagram the game for me, and
Yeah,
based on those mechanics, it's got some wingspan in it. It's got a little bit of this in it. Oh, I can figure it out.
I don't know what it is about me. I'm okay. I like rules and I like learning about rules, but it's not just Jared. Every time, like I literally went to PAX with a bunch of people that I hung out with before, and they literally went and bought a game and went, "Here, teach us how to play this game." I'm like, I've never heard of this game before in my life, and it was the Witcher board game. It was one of the most complicated games I've ever played, and I had to teach 4 brand new players how to do it, and me was one of them. So that was fun.
I'm a big fan of, there's been a lot of games I've seen lately that have a little QR code on their rule book that links to how to play like quick video, and like that's so nice when that's there, because watching a 5-minute video is so much easier than having to spend 10-15 minutes reading a rule book.
You mentioned Roll for the Galaxy earlier in the podcast, and we were at a board game shop, and I was like, "Oh, I remember how to play Roll for the Galaxy." Meanwhile, I hadn't played it for half a decade. I take it out, I start setting it up. I knew how to set it up, but once I had it set it up, I was like, I don't remember. Like, we use the cup and roll. What do we do with the dice? I don't remember any of the symbology.
Oh man, that's fun.
yeah. I just got I started purchasing Hero Quest, and they rebranded it, and it's back out now. So I bought all of them, and I have yet to play. But like I opened the original box.
Once.
We played once.
We just can't get the group together.
And I was like, "Oh, I know all these symbols," and I have no idea what I'm doing. So the same effect. I was like, "I remember all these symbols. No idea what I'm doing."
It's the nature of gaming.
Yeah. I'm super excited about your game. It sounds so much fun. I'm like enthralled by like the concept of like this, like you have your personal tableau. If you don't mind me asking, what would be some win conditions? Like, is it am I trying to score the most points? Am I trying to have the biggest forest? Am I trying to just ruin someone's life? Like, is it the most players I can make mad at me? Do I get to win?
You're trying to get the most victory points, like full stop, and the game ends at the end of era 5. So it's not like, oh, someone meets a certain win condition. We just play through 5 eras of time, and then we score the game. And there's 8 different ways to get points, so there is a lot of variety there. The majority of your points are from the cards in your estate. So any card that you've played has a VP value. And then a couple other ways are, everyone has a family secret, which is a secret objective. We, at the end of each era, compete for an era objective, and we score points there. So across each era, someone might be winning and getting points. There's also just pure gold in the game. So cards might get you gold for doing certain things, and gold is victory points in medieval fantasy. Got to have gold in the game, right? You can store resources on top of a card. It's very similar to Wingspan. So if it's stored there at the end of the game, it's a victory point per resource. You can also...
Sorry, I will add there, though, unlike Wingspan, you can use those resources.
Yeah.
So a lot of people can't use them. The stored resources, you can use them as your personal supply, or if you don't, they're victory points.
Yep. You can tuck cards underneath another card, so kind of like dungeoning or killing a citizen. So that's also a victory point for every tucked card. And then if you've maxed out one of your tableau tracks, each of those tableau tracks you've maxed out is 7 more VP. So it's really trying to reward players that go for maxing out a track or 2. The most we've seen is 2 tracks max. So there's 3 tracks on your tableau, and someone got very close, and I think they were 2 cards away from that total max of 3. But yeah, I think like seasoned players are typically maxing out 1, getting pretty close to doing 2.
So
Yeah, that one person was kind of an exception to the norm. He had played our game at almost every convention we've been to. He had not played it at the last two, which they're both local to us in Florida, so he wasn't there.
So was that the sorcerer you were telling me who had like the best hand ever and like just ruined it for everyone else? They were like, I win forever.
I don't know what he played as.
Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, I mean, it's always fun to see players get into their character and leader too, of like thematically, like, you know, the sorcerer's conjuring of stuff. Like we have an agrarian lord, and like they start out with a farm and a quarry, and like they you know, sometimes they'll get like multiple farms and they get the farmer out, and you know, it's just like players leaning into that. I think is also pretty fun from the theme.
I definitely jailed some people with my character, whoever the character starts with the dungeon.
The warden.
Oh, you were the warden. Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry, you're going to jail. I need those points.
Yeah.
Oh, what? I'm totally playing this game later. Not tonight because I need to go to bed, but I'm definitely playing this probably tomorrow at lunch. Like I'm just gonna log on and just use my work computer and play. I don't care if IT sees what I'm doing. They can know I'm playing games.
So I actually have a question. I'm not sure if you want to bring this in though. I was perusing your website, and I really was interested on the section of your website that it was creator updates, and I was really intrigued at the fact that a lot of your blog posts talk about not only the development of the game, but also are written in a way that if you're developing a game, these are the pitfalls you're probably going to run head into, and these are how we dealt with that. And I was really interested in how basically you're not only trying to make your game, and obviously trying to be successful at that game as well, but almost like trying to develop a community around board game development, not necessarily board games, but game development in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is definitely one of our goals with this adventure, is to give back to the community that's given us so much already. So we have a couple more blog post ideas. It's just we've been running out of time to focus on them, but we're trying to basically help people like understand what it takes to self-publish and like try not to have the same pitfalls as us. So I mean, we've learned a lot just through like talking with other creators. So Unpub Prime, I think I mentioned that earlier, they had a mini convention in Baltimore Unpub Prime was the actual event. It's the Unpub network of people. And we met so many people in the industry there. Like that's actually one of the key events we went to that. And we came back and we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we're gonna be able to launch in June. We have so much to do, you know? So I think that's definitely a tenet for us, is to help share the knowledge, because there's a lot of blogs out there, like candidly, like you can go on Stonemeyer's, you can go, like there's a lot out there to find, but everyone has different experiences. So we're trying to like document ours and help people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we also really like about the industry, is that for the most part, everyone we have met has been so supportive of one another and like the mission to just create great games for people to enjoy. And it's more, I feel like, cooperative and less competitive than a lot of other industries. We're all trying to get to our own finish line of when our game is ready, and we're all willing to play test each other's games to help each other get there. So that was kind of the inspiration for that. And also, I guess, a little bit, in some ways, kind of a diary of like, let's look back and what do we say about going to conventions? And we had interviewed one other publisher, and it was before we had gone to a convention yet to have a booth. We're like, what should we have at this booth? Like, you definitely need cough drops, which is not something I ever had thought about. And we are so grateful that we brought cough drops.
Because you're talking for like 12 hours a day, right? And it's like these loud convention halls, and like by the end of it, your voice is like a frog.
Like, one moment at Origins in June where my voice just completely dropped. I just lost it. It's like, 1 second. Let me get the cough drop.
Like, I need my medicine.
Yeah. Those are the things that, like, you might not know if you've never done this before, and that's why we're just posting about it, to share it. And there are other posts that we want to do, also like just the financial implications of self-publishing. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna be able to self-publish, no problem. Then you start looking at the financial consequences of pursuing that, and it's a lot. So just being aware and cognizant of where you can. I think we did one post a little bit about prototyping and like what are the costs and what are things that you should think about reducing and avoiding to prevent cost overrun as you're prototyping. And there's a lot you can do there. And unfortunately, we fell into some traps, but hopefully we will be reminded of those when we check the block.
Favorite flavor cough drop?
Ooh, definitely not mint for me.
I got this brand called Throat Coat, which is like more like natural flavors, and they had like a ginger one. It was very tasty.
Dope. I do a lot of talking, so I get the whole like your throat just burns and you're like, I got
4 more hours of this, so I gotta power through.
Yeah. I just do halls, the general like easiest thing, you're like, halls. But I'm always on the lookout for like better flavor. I used to do the Ricola because the commercial, the Longhorn, and it's expensive, and B, it just always tasted like medicine. I was like, just pick the flavor.
Have, like, iciness to them too.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm good. I have a question. What would be one thing, talking about learning and your experiences, what was like one thing you kind of wish you knew, or is like not like a secret, but like no one really talks about right before you jumped into this endeavor?
I think for me, and you'll probably hear this a lot, it's like the power of your email list. So like we've been going to Unpub Prime or PAX Unplugged Unpub Room for like 4 years now. We've been at Long Island a couple years. I think the first time we started actually collecting emails was like maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So like the power of like, even if you have this really small prototype and like it's nothing like a finished game yet, like you still are meeting people who are interested in it. And it's important to connect with them, and like getting that email sign up was something that like was pounded into us from a couple other creators, and like we've now been really trying to be diligent about it. But just that is like the number one thing you should be doing. Like if you're anywhere talking about your game, like you're trying to get them to join your email list in your community to like be more connected with them.
For sure. And I think from a like the early development perspective, play test, and play test with other people. Especially, you can't just play test by yourself because you've created your own bias around the game.
Well, I think it's especially like in our game with all the different cards, like we had to make sure that they're all working well together, and like you just need different people's brains to see different patterns. And we had some loops that formed that like we're like, whoa, you play a harbor to do this thing, and like they were just chaining like 10 points a turn, and we're like, that's broken. Right? Like that's not going to happen unless that person was playing the game and put those together. Like there's only so much you can do yourself. And so like just bringing your game to like places, and it doesn't have to be a board game convention. It could be like you go to a brewery and like you just put on the table and like people are interested, so just the power of people and just like getting the game out there, I think is like one of the number one things.
We've had the experience where people are like, oh, like I would be afraid to show my game to people because like what if they steal my idea? It's not that type of industry. We're not here to steal each other's ideas. We're here to help one another.
Or they're like scared to put it on the table because it doesn't look good, and like that's where like like it doesn't have to look good, but like there's a lot of tools now you can use to like create placeholder art. Like we did use Midjourney, which is an AI art generator, to help us create like the prototype versions of our game, and that definitely helped with the table appeal to make it so people were excited to come and try the game out versus it being like little white piece of paper with the card details on it. So yeah. There's a lot of tools in your toolkit these days.
Awesome. Yeah, I could 100% see people like myself, right? Like just being concerned about like getting people to play something, but congratulations, you guys, you had the cojones to really just get out there, because a lot of people like, that's a big step, and congratulations, and I salute any creative person who actually takes that step. I think the world would be a better place if people took those steps because they would be happy, you know. So I'm super excited to see your game in the tomorrow when I'm playing it. I'm definitely just gonna send Steve screenshots. He's gonna be like, "You're an idiot." So we talked about your game. Is there anything really cool besides the tableau and the actual board that might or might not fit on your table if you belong in Long Island or not? Is there anything else that like is really, really cool that like you want to like talk about, like mention?
Yeah, I think from a table presence, we were really inspired by Everdell, how they have that 3D tree to hold some stuff from the game. So we have a 3D castle tower that stores the deck underneath the tower arch. And then the top of the tower is where your extra workers hang out until you grow those workers. So it's really cool table presence, purely cosmetic. Doesn't really change anything else in the game, but it is going to be included in the game itself, like full stop, because we just felt like it was really it made the game like pretty unique. From like you're standing over a different table and you like see, you're like, whoa, what's that 3D castle tower on the table.
It's a medieval fantasy game. You need a castle tower.
Oh, you always need a castle tower. Are you gonna is it colored? Like, is it gonna be like black, white, gray? Can I paint?
It literally looks like it's made of stone. Like,
no way.
Our graphic designer Maria, she did an awesome job with it, so it looks like a real castle tower. I mean, it's made of cardboard, but
she shocked us. We didn't realize this when she designed it. The windows pop out, so if you wanted to, you got like with windows into the tower too.
Yeah.
What? That's dope. I'm excited. That got me hyped. I was extra hyped for this, and now there's a 3D tower. I'm all in. I think that's really cool. And talking about all in, obviously you guys are doing Kickstarter. You're not going to a different platform. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're cool talking about this, but what like are there multiple different concepts? So is there like the base and then the deluxe and then ultra mega deluxe and the super robot deluxe with fries on the side? Like what are we looking at? Am I saving like am I gonna, in my finances, am I putting aside like $200 or like $3,000? Like what am I looking at here?
Yeah, so we're trying to keep it pretty simple on Kickstarter, where we're gonna have a base game, mm-hmm. And then a deluxe game, and really those are going to be the two options. We're gonna have some stretch goals that are going to be surprises throughout the campaign, but they're either going to be for everyone or some additions to the deluxe version, and then there will be a retail copy version or like retailer pledge option as well, because we want to make this game accessible to as many people as possible. So. The deluxe version is going to have just some upgraded components. So wooden components, metal coins, and there'll be a exclusive mini expansion included in that. Maybe some other things for stretch goals, but then the biggest differences are really those components. We didn't want to really have too much variance between the games because we want like the game to be the game, Mm-hmm. So if you're buying the base game, you're getting pretty much everything that's in that deluxe.
And I'm getting that tower, right?
But yeah, tower is full stop included in both, so don't worry about that.
Okay, awesome.
So before Jared jumps into the next thing that he wants to talk about, you did mention that there's a retailer level in the Kickstarter. Does that mean that you're going to try to, after this Kickstarter is successful, and we all know it's going to be successful, is that you're trying to go bring it to retail on its own as well? Or just through the Kickstarter?
That's our goal, is to really use the Kickstarter to launch just like the initial copy, like to raise the funds to finalize the art in the game, and then do that initial manufacturing run. But then we're trying to really build this into a publishing company where we have probably like this first run is going to be like the big initial run for the game, but then those extra copies will be in retail at some stores.
Awesome.
Awesome, I appreciate that. There's been a few games that I really wish I had backed on Kickstarter because they never went to retail, and I would have really loved to like have been able to get them after the Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that aspect and that urge to be able to get everyone into the game. That's awesome. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Just because it makes me sad. Like now I'm going to obviously pledge, but like
Yeah, well, and we
yeah,
know like some people like supporting through their retailer shop too, right? So
yeah,
like if you like the game but like you don't look back in Kickstarter, that's fine. Just like tell your local retail shop, hey, like you should get some copies of this game, and then everyone can win.
definitely. I'm gonna mention this to our friend. He has a shop, and I'll bring it up to him. I'll be like, hey man, you should totally get this. Awesome.
Yeah, so where can people who are watching or listening can find you and find more information about this Kickstarter?
Yeah, so you can find us on Kickstarter itself at Estate Raise the Realm. So if you search that in Kickstarter, you should find our pre-launch page. We also have a website, which is our publishing website, Grod Games, GROD games.com. And that will have a page where you can join our email list there, as well as there's a sub page on that website that explains a little bit more about the game too.
Awesome.
Any of the Instagrams or the X's or any of the other socials?
Yeah, so on social, we're pretty active on our Instagram. It's called Estate Raise the Realm. So we try to provide some more behind the scenes, like what's going on in the life of us creating the game. And then we do have a page on BGG, which has got some good reviews on it from some other playtesters. If you've played the game with us, we'd love to have you add your review there, just because it helps just share more information. Independent, reviewers of the game is always great.
Yes, if you are hearing this and you have played Estate, go to Board Game Geek. You.
But yeah, I think, and we do have a YouTube channel, small but budding. It has our pre-launch video on there already, and then we've got a how to play and how to set up video we just created, and then we're going to be working on some more content as well leading up to the launch. And that I think is Grod Games on YouTube.
But I appreciate you so much giving us your time and your energy to be here with us to get your game out here. It's going to do fantastic. I'm super excited about this. I know Steve is too. You can't tell, but he is like grinning ear to ear.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited. I think, are we playing with you on Thursday night still? Or
Yeah. I'm all in to lose badly, but to be really mischievous.
Awesome.
That is my.
I was gonna say we're excited for that, and yeah, if you have any other friends who can play up to 4 online right now, so yeah, if you do have anyone else you want to invite, feel free.
Again, I could be real bad and just I like to be mischievous. I'm not like a troll.
He is a master of chaos. So don't let him fool you. He just likes to cause chaos.
There is a little bit of take that. And if you can blow that out to the nth degree, by all means, take it away.
Oh, really? Oh man, you made that was mistakes were made. I'm hyped about that now. Again, I want to say thank you very much, Kathryn and Devon from Estate Raise the Realm. You could check them out on all their socials, which is in the links in the description down below. And don't forget, October 15th, Kickstarter. Get on that. You don't want to miss this game. It's going to be a blast. If you can, sign up to their email, because we already talked about that, how important the email list is. So hop on over to their website and sign up for that email. And I want to say thank you again. You guys were a blast to chat and hang out with.
Jared, this was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Jared. Yeah. We had a blast being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And Steve, anything?
No, everything was great. Just remember to go to their Kickstarter page. You don't have to wait till October 15th. You can sign up for their pre-launch page now. Yes. And then you get notified when the game launches.
Awesome. Yeah. So from all of us here at Nothing Venture, Not the Game, we want to say thank you very much for being out here. And as always, we love rolling dice, giving advice with a little bit of that New York spice. See you all. Bye.
Later.
Bye.